Hello YouTube, Bob here from One Foot in the Grave 08. This is going to be a multi-part series on installing the windows in my trailer. We'll be covering the unboxing as well as cutting out and installation of the windows themselves. Each part of the series is going to have multiple videos. I got a lot of footage of doing it. I'm going to use the video that I have to convey as best I can how I did it. It may not be the right way, but it's the way that I know how to do it. There may be some spots where the video jumps around a little bit. I wound up leaving some of the videos as well as the introduction to each video on my SD card, and it was corrupted and I wasn't able to get all of the videos off of the card. I think I have enough footage to make each part of the series make sense and convey what I need it to convey. Let's go ahead and get started. Today, I'm gonna go over how I make a pattern so I can cut my windows into the side of the trailer. So stick around and we're gonna take a look at it. Maybe a time lapse or two in there, just because I tend to work slow. So let's get started. This is a emergency exit window. Don't know if I'd be able to fit through it, but I'm not going to be too worried about that. I'm going to have a couple fire extinguishers in the trailer, as well as I'll have the door up front and the ramp on the back. So there really shouldn't be a reason why I couldn't get out of the trailer. So what I've done is I've taken a sheet of this ready board, foam board, and because it's 20 inches by 30 inches, I had to cut a strip 2 inches wide, glue it to the bottom. This is for the window. It's a 22 by 30. So the length is almost perfect. The width I'm gonna have to trim off a little bit, but we're gonna go from there. And then if you notice, it's got radius corners. So what I'm gonna be doing, I've been playing with it a little bit, is using this tool, and with all the little fingers you can push and get the exact radius that you need. Just kind of sits on there like that. What I have to do is, I know where the middle of this is, but I got to find the middle of this corner so that I can lay it on there. And then when I go to cut the pattern out, I'll line those marks up and I'll know I'll have a pretty good radius. I'm going to cut just outside the lines, just to give me a little bit of room to trim up, and that way I don't cut the hole too big. My last trailer, when I put the first window in, I had the window a little bit, the cutout a little bit too big. It worked out, but this one I definitely want a little tighter than that one. So I'm gonna go ahead and put it on the camera on a tripod, and we're gonna go from there and see how well this comes out. So I went ahead and did a quick time lapse getting the corners in. I had to take, I don't know, maybe a 1/4 inch off of this, and I'm going to cut outside my lines because I know they're probably not the most accurate. And then I'll actually grab the window itself and start comparing it not only to the trim ring but to the actual window till I get it to a size that's really, really close. And then that way it'll give me a little bit of room to where if I need to, I can always trim more off of the aluminum itself so it fits through there. The bars that I'm putting in for the ones that I have to cut out are going to be about an 1/8 inch bigger than what the window is, because with the flange on it, it'll still pull in good and tight. That gives me a little bit of wiggle room, so I'll have an 1/8 inch top and bottom to get the window in. Before I get too far, I'll get those bars in. I'll kind of either clamp them in place or use some magnetic 90-degree welding squares and put that in place and make sure that the window doesn't hit where, or that the bars don't hit the window and obstruct the window, because once I get those bolted in, it's going to be pretty hard to move them a little bit. And then once they're tacked in, it's really going to be impossible to move them. Okay, so I've got it pretty well fit. It doesn't fit inside the trim ring, which is good. If I feel around the very edge on the bottom, I've got a little bit to knock off of a few of the corners, and probably saw me marking those, like right there. It's not quite perfectly round. I'm gonna actually go get the window. I'm gonna place this on the inside of the window just to see if I'm too big or too small. So we're gonna go ahead and do that, and hopefully if we need to, we'll trim it down a little bit, but I think we're gonna be pretty close. So I set the trim ring on the window. This will set the depth, and I've got the holes lined up. I don't know if I can get a good shot of that. You might be able to just see if I can get it just right. Right there, you can kind of see how the screw holes are lined up with this groove right here. That's where the screws will go in. And when I feel around it, the outside of the trim ring is just a little bit bigger than what the actual window is, so I may have to take a little bit off my pattern, which is what I wanted. But if you flip it over and put the trim ring, so the side that goes against the wall, it's actually around the window, you can see that it pretty much will slide over. There's a little spot over here where it doesn't because of some plastic spacers. But I think as long as I make the pattern so it doesn't quite fit into the inside of the trim ring right here, you know, as long as the pattern won't quite fit in there or just barely fits in there, I know that the pattern is actually a little bit smaller in the window, and that will give me the opportunity to take a little bit off when I'm done cutting. Give me just a little bit of slop. So I'm going to go ahead and get that trimmed up, and we're going to go from there, and we're going to go set this up into the trailer where it needs to be, and we're going to trace around it, and then we're going to measure for our cross braces, and hopefully later on today we're going to start cutting those out and getting the pattern in so that we can go ahead and get the aluminum cut out for the window and get the window installed. I've got to find my butyl tape. This window, some of them that I've had, my last trailer has a rubber seal here. I believe my smaller windows have a rubber seal. This one doesn't, so we're gonna have to use butyl tape when we install the window. I'm not going to complain about that. That's actually pretty nice, because once we get the window in place in the aluminum and you push on it, it'll pretty much stick in place. We're still going to tape it, and then we'll put the trim ring on the inside. So as you can see, I've got this so that it fits just inside of the trim ring, which means that when I go around on the where I have the window taped out inside the trailer, if I go around it with a Sharpie, that should be just about right. This isn't very thick aluminum, and again, when I cut it out, I can always trim it. One thing I did, made a mistake. Well, wasn't really a mistake, but would have been easier. I put this in there the way that I would want the trim ring. You know, this is going to be the outside of the trim ring that shows in the trailer. And then this is where I've got these pieces of foam board that I put across where I added the 2 inches. You can kind of see where the gap is right there. I did that because I wanted to make sure that I had the pattern in the window the same way that it was going to go into the trailer. The problem was that with these in place, it made it really hard to cut right on that line, because this part wasn't sitting flush on the table. It worked out. I'm not going to complain. You can see I've got a little gap there in the corner. Hopefully you can see that. It may be a little hard to see, but there's a little bit of a gap there, maybe a little over 1/16 of an inch, and the same thing up here. I'll just have to make note of that. And like I said, once I get the window cut, I'd rather have it a little bit too small, and then I can either file or grind. Archie's obviously wanting to play ball. So that way I'll be able to grind it so that it's the perfect size for the window. Go back, I did this part where I laid out the center lines for the center of the edges as well as top and bottom. I didn't get that on camera because my camera battery died. For some reason my GoPro's not staying charged as long as it used to. But anyway, that's beside the point. So what I do is I got a mark down here, and underneath there tape exactly where the edge of the window goes. I'll put some more tape on there and mark it with a Sharpie when I get done. But I lined up all my center marks on the window, have this taped. These two bars are the ones that are gonna have to get cut out, top and bottom. Down here I have it marked right at the edge of the window. Up here you can probably see there's one mark there that's about a 1/4 inch above. Then I've got it marked right where the edge of the foam goes. What I'm gonna have to do there is I'm gonna cut these bars out, but the piece of steel that goes in here and goes across is 1 inch, which is what this is, but then it's 2 inches wide. That was the only thing I could get without ordering it. So when I cut these out, I'll be able to make sure that the window fits in between, you know, up and down between these bars, and then I'll mark out, cut down where the 2 inches needs to be, do that. On either side here, I've got maybe a 1/4 of an inch on both sides, maybe a little bit less. So it'll fit in between these bars, that'll be good. And then I'll just have to make sure I mark really well and cut just to the inside of these bars right here, on both sides, just to make sure that I don't get the opening too big. And like I said, I'm gonna cut these off right at the top and the bottom of the window and get this so that it'll push up right against the aluminum. I'll put some more tape around it so that when I go around with a Sharpie, I can actually see it. And then after I get it window fit, I'll come back in and cut this down the 2 inches, probably a little bit more than the 2 inches, and get that so that I can put the steel in there. And again, it's gonna be a bar that comes across here, and it'll, like I said, it'll get bolted with angle brackets that I'm gonna make out of some 1/8 inch 1x1 angle steel, and then I'm gonna bolt it in. So next thing hopefully you'll see is a time lapse of me cutting these bars so that I can get this fit up against the aluminum and mark it out. What I did was I had to take some screws out of the aluminum here to make sure this bar was loose. I put a couple of bars underneath there to wedge it out away from the aluminum, so when I cut through I don't accidentally cut into the aluminum until I get it marked. I'm going to be using a 4-inch angle grinder to cut through the metal, or the metal cutting blade. Please, please, please always make sure you wear your gloves when you're doing this. Face mask or safety goggles are very important as well. I don't know if that right there was from last year when I was using the 4-inch angle grinder to cut some chain. I was in a hurry. I didn't want to look for my gloves, and I wound up having a problem where the angle grinder wound up getting wedged in the chain, jumped out of it. I lost control and sliced open the back of my hand with it. Required 6 stitches to get it closed up. It cut pretty deep, and if you actually look, I don't know if you can see it on the camera or not. Sorry about it being jiggly, but that black streak right there is left over from the disc that they couldn't debride and get out of there. So please, please, please always use safety gear when you're doing stuff like this, especially gloves and some sort of eye protection or safety glasses. The glasses I have are polycarbonate, so I don't have to worry as much. They act as safety glasses, and hopefully that'll be enough for me. So time to make some sparks and get those 2 pieces cut out so we can trace the window in. was I switched over to my earmuffs. I had the squishy little earplugs in, but they were bugging me. I've never really cared for those. Going back to my earmuffs, personal protection equipment's always important. Make sure you use it. Make sure you're safe. That concludes this video in the series. I hope you got something out of it, and I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please like and subscribe, share, and if you didn't, sorry about that. I'm doing the best that I can.